Okay, so that wallpaper in the description, this is the Feliks ELISE tube amp. And this is going to be a multi-part video where I actually have to do editing because a user sent this in and he's like, hey, review my ELISE, brand new. So he hasn't even heard it yet. I'm like, fine. And I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm going to send you a shitload of tubes. And I'm like, fuck. So he ordered all the tubes and the amp and had it sent here. So now I have to sit here over the course of the next couple of days because it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good review because these are the most probably tuberific headphones. I got the 280 Pros, which I don't give these enough praise. They're really flat and neutral. They're like whatever, everything. The new ones, these 280 Pros new ones are everything that M50s promised you, M50Xs promised you, but better and better isolation. And then when you tube them, it's like, holy fuck. So they're a great example of what a tube can do to make enjoyment out of a sound. Got the Neumann NDH20s, which is Sennheiser, and these are also owned by Sennheiser, but like what that is, but now make it $500. That's what the Neumanns do. It was requested by the tube gurus in my $10 patronage chat that I bring out a set of ZMF for this. And if you're gonna tube a ZMF, you might as well tube a ZMF that's a little bit close and aggressive. So that's why I have Aeolus. And of course, my custom painted HD 600s are here. They are the official final word in tubes and in what tube goodness make it go. And I'm not sure yet, I might bring up a solid state amplifier because I'm using the Musician Pegasus as my DAC. I finally had to update the Pi 2 AES over there. So the Pi 2 AES is being sent via the magic of the Wi-Fi's, Mr. Broken Wings. So through the magic of the Wi-Fi's, through the I2S HDMI connection into this, and then this has only RCA inputs in the back. I'll find myself, actually that means I'm gonna need an amplifier with balanced inputs, but I'm not gonna use it balanced, I'm gonna use it single-ended so that I can compare and contrast, because really, if you're gonna judge a tube amp, you either judge it against another tube amp to see how the tube amp tube, or you just keep going back to just straight linear, just clean, and just, this is it. And now what are you doing? What's the magic? And the shitty part is that since he bought all these tubes, I have to turn this off, let them cool down a little bit, take the tubes out, put them on the side, put new tubes in, turn it on, let it warm up for 10, 15, 20, 30, 500 minutes. These all got burned in, by the way. I literally, we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to give my assessment of the tube with stock tubes, and these are PS Vane tubes. And then we're gonna move on to TUNG-SOLs and Millards, and this, these, each electron tube, GTE, this doesn't say what it is. I think these are old GEs. I know there's some TUNG-SOLs, and we're just gonna go, oh God. So this is the intro to this. Big shout out to Casa and their automation stuff, because the tubes in this needed to be burned in, and you should just turn on the tube and leave it on. But in the instruction manual, it's like you shouldn't run this for more than 8 hours straight. If you do run it for 8 hours, you have to shut it off. And after you shut it off for 1 hour, you need to shut it off. You need to wait a whole hour for it to cool off before you turn it back on. So I'm like, how am I gonna automate that process? So I literally set up a schedule, 7 hours on, 1 hour off, 7 hours on, 1 hour off, 7 hours on, for like 3 days, burning the tubes. So Casa automation stuff, linked in the description. And you don't even need like anything but one piece of equipment in the app, and you could do that. Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm about to get started on this review. It's late right now, it's dark. I'm sure you're going to see the light change, but you won't see the wallpaper change. That'll be consistent throughout. And I will go through these and I will sort of give my impression on what the change is compared to whatever solid state amplifier I decide to bring up here. So let me go do that now. I'll see you in a bit. High voltage rock and roll, AC/DC. So, okay, before that gets me blocked on all the YouTubes. These are a set of the Kenrads followed by the Millard tubes. I'm going to double check. Yes. So, like I said, I took all the stock tubes out. I swapped them out with the Kenrads and Millards. Random fucking pairing of the... I have another set of full random pairing. And, because that's the only way I can really review. Because what I'm reviewing here is a tube amp. And the problem with tube amps, I'm going to go through this as the thoughts come to me, is that really... this is just the chassis to hold the tubes. If you take the tubes out, you don't have anything. This $1,300 box is fucking useless. So when I review the unit and I tell you to buy it, which I'm at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm sold on the Elise as a great tube amp. You have to take into consideration that when you get it, you may have to start doing some tube swapping. Because now I'm on with these Kenrads and those Millards, and it's like, oh Jesus, yes. Like first of all, I'm glad this is a perfect selection of headphones for this. These three I know are like great for tubes, and these I never really felt like the Aeolus needed a tube, but it's good that they're here because they're the most expensive pair. And if you have something like Aeolus, you have to be warned, because the differences that I heard now that I've got like just a random fucking wild. By the way, these tubes like glow. Looks like a toaster oven. I've not had tubes with this like before, so there we go. The biggest change, and this is pretty consistent now, and I'm pretty sure 280 Pros have shown the biggest change between the solid state choice and the tube choice. And they're low ohms impedance. I don't think they're high, but low end, holy God. It goes from like, okay, this is fine. This sounds really good getting fed with the Hollow May through the 789. This is excellent. Sounds excellent. To put it to the Elise, and it's like, oh God, yes. Fucking I want to say bass cannon, but that makes me feel like it's not as high quality as it was, because it was purely tube bass. That was a sort of bump that I was expecting when you get something like a $1,300 amp. And I didn't get it from the stock tubes, so totally got it from these. Holy shit. But that only happened with the 280 Pros. So they sounded absolutely... This is probably the best pairing I've ever heard. These on this with these tubes is great. Moved over to the Aeolus. And I was listening to something, and then Tool came on. I'm like, ooh, Anima from Tool. I didn't like it. I went back to the 789. I'm like, oh, that's smoother. So something about the way the impedance matching on this, and we'll talk about volume for a second. On this particular, it sounded fine on the stock tubes. I was like, all right, it's a little bit too much, too normal. I kind of wanted to change. But this is the problem with tubes. We're talking about taking multiple different factors. The design of the amplifier itself, how it's using the tubes, how it's powering them. And then you're putting in random tubes that do different items, which is power and preamp tubes. And then you're talking about the impedance load of it. How is it going to affect this particular set of drivers? And it was like crunchy. I don't know, it was too intense. It was like, I actually was like uncomfortable listening to that one or two songs with the Aeolus. And I switched back to the 789, and it was just smoother. So that's a concern, because people who buy expensive headphones like this are going to buy expensive tube amps like this, and when they get them and you maybe do a swap, it's like, it's a crapshoot. There is no way to know exactly how it's going to, other than the stock tubes, there's no way to know if you get like these Kenrads, but then keep the stock power tubes. Because I could do all the different variations of swapping, and I'd be here till 2022. So just know that not every headphone will work amazingly on every tube amp and tube combination. You might get a negative effect. This was a fucking severe positive effect. This was like it's bright. It's in my face. Moving on, because that was the only bad experience I've had with this combination. The Neumanns. So the Neumann NDH20s are my neutrality kings. And when I enjoy them a lot, it's probably because they're on a tube. So I'm just sitting here, just letting the pads warm up, because one of the flaws of the Neumanns is they use this really stiff memory foam, and when it gets even below room temperature, like a degree, they turn to rocks. So you have to let them warm up on the side of your head. I kind of wish I could place them on the tubes. The Neumanns did exactly what I expect them to do on a tube. They widened up, they softened up. You got that, I went back and forth a few times. The bass boost was gentle. There was almost no bass boost, by the way, when I plugged this in. It was completely opposite effect. This bass monster, this, and this was like, ooh, that was a smoothening of everything. When it's windy up here, it is windy up here, if you could hear that. And so it's like, all right, I gotta know. Switch to the 600s, because the HG600s, I might want to take, see, I think these sound their best on a tube, but I think the 280 Pros for $100, if you want to know what tubes do, this is the best fucking solution, because they change the most. And then these sound fucking spectacular. Spectacular, because you put them on. I'm going to put them on. I'm going to switch from AC/DC to something else. Patty Austin, the confidence man. We may have to wait for things to click on. Oh no, I lowered the shit out of this. Yeah, no, these are, of the 4 headphones here, these sound the best right now. This tube amp, these tubes, I would love to just list it all, but I'm sure you could hear what's playing. That's bad. If I had to sit here for like, all right, you picking your headphone for the week, Zeos, because this is like an internment camp somewhere, and I am forced to listen to all this shit, but I can only have one pair of headphones, and now you got to pick based on what you're hearing. It's the 600s. So what that means is that the Elise, with this random tube combination, is doing a fucking phenomenal job on those. And I would love to, like, people are going to be like, but Zeos, how does it sound with this? Zeos, I'm going to throw a set of planars on there. I brought out the Pandas, because I've been using the Pandas since they got returned to me from Drop. And I want to know what they're going to do, because those are planar. I'm going to probably take the Gold planars out and plug them in here. I got to get the wire for it. Because usually you don't put planars on this type of tube amp. You need to get like a really high end, there's a different design structure for using planar and tube amp, because they have such low impedance that it freaks it out and it gets weird. It sounds like this. I'm like, you know what, are these low impedance? That could be a factor in this. I don't actually remember the impedance of the Aeolus. But these are 300 ohm, these are 150 ohm, and I think these are super low. These are like 32 ohm. Assembled in USA. Bullshit. I didn't even realize that it said assembled in USA. Either way, these things really, they reach into the tube and say, here's exactly what the fuck I wanted to do. What happens to these happens to this, but like threefold. But overall, they're not as, amazing a set of headphones as the 600. So reducing that and just giving me this fucking warm spaciousness. Like there was something that happened to sound that sounded like the guy was recording at 50 feet behind the microphone. And I made sure I swapped back and I was like, all right, I still hear it. It still sounds like it's in that position, but I don't enjoy it as much. See, tubes are fucking weird and magical things. So they're an enjoyment thing. So I'm going to say right now, this is definitely a worthwhile investment for tubes, but you got to get the tubes. And I'm linking to all the tubes I'm using, and I'm going to switch to the next set of tubes now that I'm recorded this part, which is interesting because it's kind of like playing a very basic video game is what a tube amp is, but then you start loading those mods on. You start loading, oh, this is a mod that gives you a Porsche, this is a mod that gives you guns for hands, this is a mod that gives you guns for feet, and you play the game again. So I'm going to shut that off, and I'm going to give it a half hour, take the tubes out, put those tubes in, and then turn it back on, and then give it a half hour, and then do this whole process over again. I'm going to shuffle through my music and see what changes. And we'll see if good things happen or bad things happen. So far, we've had very, very good things happen, and one strangely weird sort of negative effect. So I'll accept that. In the grand scheme of things, 25% failure rate is pretty good. Moving on. Be right back. Fuck it section. I'm not even waiting because I swapped. All right. Can I listen to this while talking to you guys? Because I really want to enjoy this while. All right. So we had some tube issues. I swapped out from the Kenrads and No, I'm sorry. I started from the TUNG-SOL and the Mallards to the Kenrads and these Sylvanias. And so these Sylvanias are the big ones that go in the back, and they glow really bright. And ooh, and what's that burning smell? Like tubes heat up and they get hot, and there's like a burning smell, then it goes away. No, 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 no. This was a permeating my whole fucking space, electronics are on fire smell. And it's not the tube amp's fault. It's not the Elise. I'm bringing it up because I'm warning you all about the things that can happen when you buy tubes from Fleabay. These are American-made Sylvanias, and they're probably old as shit, and they probably weren't tested 100% before they were bought, or before they were sold at least, or someone lied. Because putting these in the back of this unit causes the burning smell. And I had to do a whole bunch of testing up and down, hot and cold. All right, did that burn? All right, take everything out, put the stock tubes back. Is the tube amp burning? No, it's not the actual amp. Okay, start swapping tubes. So I swapped the big tubes back in first, burning smell. Then I took them out, put those little tubes in, no burning smell. Okay, but those are the tubes I understand. So now we'll do the Kenrads. And the tubes I did in the last section, I was supposed to change all four, but these bad. So the owner was giving me permission. He said he didn't pay too much for them. He said, chuck these in the garbage. So what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to mount these in some wood and then mount them to my mailbox. So it looks like my mailbox is a tube amp, because you don't waste things in a society. Anyway, holy fuck. Like, all that aside, all the fact that there's bad tubes can do bad things to good amps. This setup now with the Kenrads and the Mallards and the Sneakers OST. If you never saw Sneakers, it's a movie starring Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier and River Phoenix and Dan Aykroyd, and it's a great fucking movie. But the soundtrack is very, very quiet. You could see down between her thighs. There's a very thin line. But oh my God, I literally had to stop, because last time I did it, last section was these power tubes and then these TUNG-SOL. And I was like, oh, I don't like the way these sound, the fucking ALS. And here we are right now. I haven't even really sat down to listen to these two yet. And I'm going to turn the camera on because I'm like, holy God. So does the tube matter? Yes. Does it matter more than the amp? Probably. But this is delivering some of the creamiest sounds I've ever heard through ALS. And I wanted to get that like initial reaction. Oh, this is why you buy the tube amp. Oh yeah, this is dead and hollow and lifeless compared to that now. So I mean, if you wanted to know if you should spend the money on this of the tubes, okay, yeah. That is beautiful sounding. So now I'm going to stop this, listen to the other two, and give you the actual full impression. Another oofy song, Jurassic Park theme from Jurassic Park. The first one, the one that actually matters, on HD600s is like, yeah, this. This is why you tube, motherfuckers. But more. I do have to sort of complain a little bit about the amplifier not having a good indicator. We've gone through this shit before. Not only does it not have a face indicator at all, but the indicator itself is a black notch there. So it's like, if I pointed at 2 o'clock, I could see it because the lights 2 o'clock is down here. But over here, it's like, where the fuck are you? So I would highly recommend to the owner, Joe, to get a fucking magic marker and do it up. But oh my God, yeah, okay. So, first of all, I want to point out I'm not drinking French ginger liqueur. This is my water bottle. I finished all the French ginger liqueur. Life hacks videos available on my unboxing channel. Zeos, link the life hacks playlist, which you're going to make on the other unboxing channel. I love making work for myself. Just take a really heavy glass bottle, whatever. It doesn't have to be from liquor. Fill it with water. It's amazing. Love that. Another thing I want to point out, because they arrived recently, these are the balanced cables that the owner is getting. He got a set of Viking Weaves. How the fuck do I undo this mess? These are Viking Weave XLRs, and I talked to Skedra about them, and he says these connectors, which are Viborg, are like 35 euros each, unless you buy them in bulk, and then they're like 20 something euros each. And they don't have a lock mechanism. Like haven't swapped them out. I'm not going to swap them out for this test because obviously consistency, and God knows what magic these will bring. I just want to show off that these have a little locking little thing there. So you literally just go like, there's some of the nicest like that screws out and tightens. It's like this metal, and then there's no lock. They just pull apart. You know, these are fucking nice. They do remind me a lot of Z wires though, with this. There's like silver in there. That's wild. Anyway, so link to Viking Weave if you want to order crazy expensive cables that don't claim anything, but you know, you buy whatever the fuck you want. This is a free capitalist society we live in. Oh, I just want to listen to the entire So HG 280 Pros, we got a little bit of a bass boost, definitely an improvement compared to solid state. These pretty much showed off still the best, but now with those Kenrads, these things are fucking buttery smooth. These have, the way I can assess the sound difference is definitely, we're cropping the highs a bit. We're taking away a little bit of the harshness of the highs. And I did a specific test where I went back and forth with one song that had a really powerful bass note, and boom, and it rang for a little bit. And on the solid state, it was much heavier bass tone. You got that sub bass, and this sort of like averages it out and stretches it. So we still got bass, but it went less low, but rang longer. And that's what I listen for in a tube amp. What is it doing to the highs and to the lows and to the width? And we've got more width with these. We're like putting a normalization filter on the low end, but it's like dragging it out, which sounds fucking way awesome. And we're just cropping the highs. That's exactly what I want. That's what I want from a tube amp. I want it to sound different. The more different from this 789 this sounds, and it's still enjoyable, the better it is. So am I praising the amp? Am I praising the tubes? These Kenrads. With the stock tubes, this is not as good that it is right fuck now. So, whoa, birdie nom nom. Manual for a successful riot is doing some left and right traveling things that are just hurting my brain. Skipping forward a bit. Oh yeah, no. This wind again. This combo might be the best combo I've heard for tubes. Okay, I have one more swap to do. Now that we've gotten this one out of the way, I'm gonna leave these rear tubes, because those are the power tubes. I'm gonna swap the Kenrads in front, which give me the reach around, hold on. Let that cool off. I'm gonna swap these front tubes one more time. Since I can't test the power tubes, and I could put the stock tubes back, I'm not going to. I'm gonna swap these out for the tubes that are in my Tour balanced, which will work here. And I know, and Joe knows, everybody knows, those are like the tube for soundstage and width and warmth. So it's gonna be interesting hearing them try to compete with these Kenrads, but I'm gonna do that. And I'm also going to probably add 1 or 2 planars to this mix, just to see how it does with planars, because planars usually you don't put them on standard OTL tubes. You want either a hybrid or there's a special tube amp, because they're so low impedance, you need a different type of tube amp to get them to run properly. But I'll see how they work. I think I'm gonna pull, they're over there somewhere. I have the drop pandas, which I can feed directly. I have a wire. And I'll go get the gold planars, because if I don't put the gold planar GL2000s on this, I'm a bad man. A bad man. So let that cool off for a minute. Reminder, wallpaper in the description, and I'll be back probably in 2 hours. Yeah, okay, it works with the gold planars. And I hadn't heard the gold planars I never heard them unbalanced. I only heard them balanced. I used balanced cables both times. So this is the first time I heard it unbalanced on like the 789. And I'm like, all right, yes, gold planar. And then I switched it over, and I'm expecting it to be, it sounded so different, it almost sounded weird. but I don't think it's made it like a super negative impact. A lot of times planars will get weird, and this is just more of the same tubey goodness. Oh, I should also point out that these are now the tubes from the Tor Roger, no, not the Tor Roger, the Tor Balanced, which are my tubes I own. So I'm still using the Millard power tubes in the back and these in the front. And I probably, it seemed more extreme on some of these headphones and less on the others. Oh, I also tried that out with the, I did actually hook up the closed back Pandas, so I'll link to the Pandas. Pandas are a weird headphone to tube, let's put it that way. I don't think that planar handles as well as this planar. This is just, like we still have, like if I push it like, loud, there's a little bit of like the bass slam is, I said bass slam. Fuck, cancel this channel, delete YouTube. It's like I can feel it wants to push to the distortion levels because it's so easy to drive. Well, it's so low impedance. But at like normal listening levels, like anything below 12 o'clock, it's Harold Faltmeyer from the thing is just great. You know, I was getting, ow. Yeah, no, definitely fucking all the tube sound. All the tube sound. With that tube, I literally put on the Neumanns and just didn't stop listening. Like I was just on my phone, probably 25 minutes. Like I have things to do today, and I was just 25 minutes listening to the Neumanns on that tube. So that's it. I gotta finalize this video because this is probably like 35 minutes already. Wallpaper, link to that. This is a very solid tube base. If you are a tube person and you want to do tube swapping, this is your amp. If you are looking for a tube amp that is just one and done, don't have to touch it, I don't know what to do, Zeos, I would recommend something along the lines of the Tor Roger or the Tor Balanced, because those come with these weird, fancy vintage tubes, and they're a small number of factory. I don't, these PS Vanes, the stock tubes that it came with, don't fall. These are all brand new Chinese tubes, and it's like, all right, and they work, but like, all you gotta do is like look, and I'll pick up one of the busted ones. You could just look at the difference in what's inside one of these tubes. Like there's nothing in this versus, holy fuck. I mean, this one's literally trying to burn my house down, but you get the point. Like the stock tubes are just, they make it go, but they're not the best. You have to provide your own little experimentation and figure out what to do. If you wanted to find out about these tubes and the owner of this, please join my $10 Patreon chat via Patreon or Subscribestar, and you could ask Joe exactly why he picked these tubes and what he likes about them, because he'll probably have them back by the time you see this. Maybe not. I don't know, COVID makes the scheduling a pain in the dick. But yes, I would absolutely keep this over the DarkVoice if I could keep it with these tubes. Not being balanced is like, all right, it's not balanced. Real heavy duty balanced tubes are, you know, you gotta work for it. But this is basically the next step up from the DarkVoice, which is what he told me he wanted, and that's exactly what it is. As long as you're willing to spend the time to dick around with it, you get some quality stuff. Did I even walk around the back of this ever? Like ever. I mean, just come, oh, I'm so old and broken. Power switch, fuse, power plug. These I'm using the world's best cables to come in from the DAC here. Why is that crooked? Both these screws are crooked. Why would the Hollow May have crooked screws? So they're both getting fed into this. Here you go. Hollow May is getting fed from this. I'm actually outputting into this, so I wanted to listen to a hybrid where I'm using the tube to pre-out this. I can just push the button in or out. And I did that and it was okay. Actually, I didn't do it with this pair of headphones, but that's probably fine. I think overall, a wonderful experience, if not just time consuming. Oh, but Chewbacca's eating. But I do get to use a vertical 16:9 wallpaper. So congratulations, internet. And I got to sit up here in the nice warm area and test versus the basement, which is a nice change of pace because I wasn't going to spend the time to go down and so this is great. So Patreon and Subscribestar help support this channel. People on there, the ones who loan me things like this, are like, hey Zeos, if you message me just randomly from the blue, I don't know who you are, but if you're paying me $5, apparently you're a real person. So if you want to get in touch with me, that's how you do it. Specifically through the Telegram chat. I have had very, very severe problems with Patreon messaging and Subscribestar messaging. So if you try to reach me like in an emergency, don't. Just, there's other ways around it. You're gonna have to figure those out. They usually require $10. This is dusty a little bit. Or is it greasy? I don't know. One of those. Nice logo. Good thing. Doesn't smell like burning anymore. That's fantastic. I'm gonna shut it off now. Pack it up. Check out the Patreon, Subscribestar, see these videos early. Participate in the yard sales. I don't think Joe will be happy if I sold this in a yard sale, so I don't think I'll do that. But you never know. Maybe I'll put the broken tubes in the yard sale. Because who doesn't want tubes that might possibly catch your house on fire? That's a wonderful thing. See these reviews early, participate in the yard sale, 1st and 10th of every month, free shipping continental United States, 1/3 shipping international. I pay 2/3, you pay 1/3. And don't forget the $10 chat, which I talked about already. There are higher tiers if you want to be a badass. And PM me, those higher tiers are required for that. But don't PM me all the time, please. I have too many things. Hi-Fi Guides and the Hi-Fi Guides forum. I don't know which finger is which. The forum comes second. One's being updated, the other one's already awesome. I won't tell you which one. My seat's now been taken, so there's no hope. Is there no hope? The GL2000s, surprisingly good on a tube. Like the 20 minutes or so, I was just shuffling through tracks, I was waiting for the weird to happen. It never happened. It's never happened, poopers. You're the weird that happened. Thank you. All right, I gotta go, I guess, well, she just ate and drank, so what else do you want? Just love? It's time for me to love my cat, everybody. I hope you guys can love the bunny girl, and I'll see you all tomorrow for another review. And did we get everything? Let me say goodbye. Say goodnight. Oh, grubbies.